Friends, I want you to imagine something with me. You and your spouse are sitting at your kitchen table, coffee in hand, talking about retirement. Your spouse just turned 62, you're 64, and money has been a little tight the last few months. Your spouse looks up and says, "Why don't I just go ahead and file for Social Security now? It'll help with the cash flow." It sounds reasonable, practical even. A lot of couples make exactly that call every single day. But what if that one decision made on a quiet Tuesday afternoon over a cup of coffee quietly costs your household $48,000 over the next 12 years? And what if it doesn't stop there? What if that same decision permanently reduces the monthly income your surviving spouse receives for the rest of their life, potentially by more than $1,000 a month? That's what the Social Security spousal benefit filing order can do when nobody explains the rules. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how the spousal benefit works, why the filing order matters more than most couples ever realize, and what you can do right now to protect your household's lifetime income. You'll learn the specific rules around spousal benefits and how early filing permanently reduces those numbers. You'll see two couples, same ages, similar savings, and watch how one decision separates their total lifetime Social Security income by over $48,000. And at the end, I'll give you a 5-question checklist you can go through before either of you touches the Social Security application. Quick note, this is education, not personalized financial or legal advice. Please talk with a fiduciary planner or a Social Security specialist before making any filing decisions for your specific situation. And stick around, because in the second half, I'll walk through the survivor benefit math, and that part alone may be the most valuable thing you hear today. Let me start with this story I see play out over and over across this country. There's a couple, we'll call them Dave and Carol. Dave is 64, and Carol just turned 62. Dave is still working, pulling in a solid income with 2 years left before he wants to retire. Carol stepped away from her nursing career a few years back and has been home since. Their financial planner tells them, "Carol, you should file for Social Security now. Bring in some extra income while Dave finishes his last 2 years." It sounds like a no-brainer. Carol gets about $800 a month. The household breathes a little easier. But here's what nobody sat down and explained. By filing at 62, Carol permanently locked her benefit at roughly 70% of what she would have received at her full retirement age of 67. That reduction never goes away. It follows her for the rest of her life. And because Carol filed early, the spousal benefit she could later claim on Dave's record is also permanently reduced. The door she closed at age 62 cannot be reopened. Now let me show you their neighbors, Bob and Helen. Bob is also 64. Helen just turned 62. Similar income, similar savings, almost the same picture as Dave and Carol. But Helen's older brother had gone through something very similar a few years earlier, and he warned her. "Wait," he said. "At minimum, wait until your full retirement age." Helen waits. She doesn't touch Social Security until age 67. Her monthly benefit comes in at $1,140 compared to Carol's $800. Every single month, Helen's household brings in $340 more than Carol's. And 12 years into retirement, Helen has collected roughly $163,000 from Social Security on her own record. Carol, who started 4 years earlier, has collected about $115,000. Same number of years, $48,000 less. Same neighborhood, same starting point. One conversation at age 62, one different piece of information created a gap that will follow both women for the rest of their lives. Let me ask you, which household do you want to be in? And more importantly, do you know which path you are currently on? To understand why this happens, you need to know how the Social Security spousal benefit actually works, because most people have heard the phrase but have no idea what's underneath it. Here's the foundation. Social Security calculates your own retirement benefit based on your 35 highest earning years. The result of that calculation is called your primary insurance amount, your PIA. That's the number everything else is built on. Your spouse can receive what's called a spousal benefit, up to 50% of your PIA. But that 50% is only available at the spouse's full retirement age. For anyone born in 1960 or later, that full retirement age is 67. And there are two more conditions. First, the higher earner must have already filed for their own Social Security before the spousal benefit activates. Second, the spousal benefit amount must be larger than what the claiming spouse earned on their own record. Social Security pays the higher of the two, not both. Let me put real numbers on that. If Dave's PIA, his full retirement age benefit, is $2,800 a month, Carol's maximum possible spousal benefit is $1,400 per month. But she only receives that full $1,400 if she waits until age 67. If Carol files at 62, 5 years early, Social Security applies a reduction of roughly 35% to that spousal benefit. So instead of $1,400, Carol might see something closer to $910 as her spousal amount. That's a permanent reduction. It doesn't recover when she turns 67. It stays at $910 for the rest of her life. Now here's the detail that surprises almost every couple I walk through this with. The spousal benefit and your own earned benefit are not added together. Social Security pays you the higher of the two, either your own earned benefit based on your own work record or the spousal benefit based on your spouse's record. So, if Carol worked for 22 years and built up her own benefit of $950 a month at FRA, and her spousal benefit at FRA would be $1,400, Social Security pays her the $1,400. But if she files at 62, her own benefit is reduced to around $665, and the spousal amount is reduced to around $910. She ends up with less from a system she paid into for over 2 decades, and she never reaches the full spousal amount her husband's record would have supported. Here's another piece most couples never hear until it's too late. You cannot claim a spousal benefit until the higher earner has also filed for their own Social Security. The spousal benefit only activates once the primary earner's record is turned on. This creates a real planning question every couple needs to answer together. When does each of us file? In what order? And how does that sequence affect the monthly income coming into our households? In most cases, the strategy that protects the most lifetime income follows a general pattern. The lower earner, often the one who worked fewer years or had lower wages, files first, usually at or near their full retirement age. The higher earner delays as long as possible, ideally all the way to age 70, to maximize both the primary benefit and the survivor benefit. Every year, the higher earner delays past their full retirement age. Their benefit grows by 8%. From FRA to age 70, that's a total increase of 24%. So Dave's $2,800 at FRA becomes approximately $3,472 at age 70. That's $672 more every single month for life. And one more thing before we move to the numbers. If you were born before January 2nd, 1954, there was a strategy called restricted application that let married couples claim spousal benefits first, while letting their own benefit grow to 70. For most people watching today, that window is now closed. Make sure any advisor you work with knows the current rules. Stay with me, because the next part is where we take all of this and put it into the context that actually changes how couples think about this decision, the survivor benefit. Now, the monthly numbers we just walked through are important, but the real reason this filing decision matters isn't just about today's check. It's about what happens in that quiet stretch of retirement when one spouse is left alone. Most married couples have at least some age gap between them, and statistically, one spouse will outlive the other on average by 7 to 10 years. For women especially, that solo stretch of retirement can be long, and it can be expensive. Here's how the survivor benefit works. When one spouse passes away, the surviving spouse receives the higher of the two Social Security amounts the household was collecting. The smaller check stops, the larger one continues. The surviving spouse keeps the bigger of the two. So here's why the higher owner's filing decision is so critical. The amount they lock in, whether they file early at FRA or at 70, becomes the foundation of the survivor benefit the other spouse lives on. Let me show you what this looks like in real dollars. If Bob delays to age 70 and his benefit is $3,472 a month, and Helen is collecting $1,140 on her own record, then when Bob passes away, Helen receives $3,472 a month for the rest of her life. Her own $1,140 stops. She keeps Bob's higher amount every month for as long as she lives. Now let me show you Dave and Carol's version of the same moment. Dave filed at 66, locking in a benefit of about $2,570 a month, slightly below his full retirement age amount of $2,800 because he filed a year early. Carol, as we covered, is collecting $910 as her reduced spousal benefit. When Dave passes away, Carol keeps his $2,570 a month. That's $902 a month less than Helen's survivor benefit every month for as long as Carol lives. Over a 10-year solo retirement, that $902 monthly difference adds up to $108,240. Over 15 years, it approaches $163,000. And this is the part that I find the hardest to talk about, but the most important. I have spoken with widows and widowers who had no idea their spouse had filed early. They knew what their monthly Social Security check was. They just didn't know there had been another path. When their spouse passed and the survivor benefit came in lower than they expected, the realization hit them. A decision made years ago was now permanently shaping what they had left to live on. That is not about money. That is about dignity. That is about independence. That is about not having to call your adult children for help with the electric bill. You can always earn more money. You cannot undo a Social Security filing decision after 12 months have passed. Within the first 12 months of filing, Social Security does allow what's called a withdrawal of application. You file Form SSA 521, pay back every dollar you received, and your record resets. But after that 12-month window closes, the decision is permanent. If you are at or past your full retirement age and have already filed, there is a second option called voluntary suspension. You can ask Social Security to suspend your benefit. Your check stops, but your benefit earns delayed retirement credits, 8% per year until you restart it or reach age 70. It doesn't undo the early reduction, but it can partially recover some ground. Most people who filed early don't know this option exists. If you're at FRA right now, it's worth at least understanding. That's why I always say the most important Social Security conversation a married couple can have is not when should I file. It's when should we file, in what order, and what does the surviving spouse need to live comfortably on their own. When you frame it that way, the decision looks completely different. It becomes less about solving a cash flow problem today, and more about building a monthly income floor that protects whichever of you is left standing. In a moment, I'll walk you through the side-by-side math with Dave and Carol versus Bob and Helen. I want you to see the total numbers, not just the monthly difference, but the lifetime picture. And if you're watching this and thinking, well, we already filed, stay with me anyway, because later I'll cover one option that may still be available to you, depending on when you filed. Alright, let's put real numbers on this. I want to walk you through Dave and Carol versus Bob and Helen side by side, because seeing the full comparison is the moment most people truly get it. Let's start with the baseline. Dave is 64, still working. Carol is 62. Dave's projected benefit at his full retirement age of 67 is $2,800 a month. At age 70, if Dave delays, that grows to about $3,472 a month. Carol's own earned benefit at FRA is $950 a month. She worked 22 years as a nurse. Now path 1. What Dave and Carol actually did. Carol files at 62. Her $950 FRA benefit is reduced by roughly 30% for filing 60 months early. She receives $665 a month. 2 years later, Dave retires at 66 and files. He receives about $2,570, slightly below his FRA amount because he filed 1 year before his full retirement age. When Dave files, Social Security checks whether Carol qualifies for a spousal benefit larger than her own $665. She does, but because she filed early, her spousal amount is also reduced. She gets bumped up to about $910 a month as her spousal benefit, not $1,400, not the full 50%, $910 permanently. Combined household Social Security income for Dave and Carol, his $2,570 plus her $910 equals $3,480 a month. Now let's look at Bob and Helen. Same ages, similar work histories. Helen waits until age 67. She files at her full retirement age and receives her full earned benefit, $1,140 a month. Bob delays all the way to age 70. His benefit grows from $2,800 to $3,472, a 24% increase. Bob and Helen's combined household Social Security income, $3,472 plus $1,140 equals $4,612 a month. That is $1,132 more per month than Dave and Carol's household is receiving every month. Over 12 years, that $1,132 monthly gap adds up to more than $162,000 in additional total Social Security income for Bob and Helen's household. And remember, we haven't even gotten to the survivor benefit yet. Fast forward to age 80. Both Bob and Dave pass away in the same year. Helen begins collecting Bob's $3,472 survivor benefit. Her own $1,140 stops. She receives $3,472 a month for the rest of her life. Carol begins collecting Dave's $2,570 survivor benefit. Her $910 spousal payment stops. She receives $2,570 a month. The gap between Helen and Carol in that surviving spouse phase, $902 a month. Carol will collect $10,824 less per year than Helen from the same Social Security Administration, just because of the filing decisions made when they were both 62. Over a 10-year solo stretch, that's $108,240. Over 15 years, it approaches $163,000. Add that to the $48,000 gap from the earlier years of retirement, and you're looking at a total lifetime Social Security difference between these two households that can exceed $200,000. That is not a rounding error. That is the difference between a comfortable solo retirement and one where money is tight every single month. And none of it required exotic investments, complex strategies, or any luck at all. It required knowing the rules before filing. Now, I want to address something a lot of couples wonder about at this point. What if we already made the early filing decision? What options do we have? If you filed within the last 12 months, there is an option. It's called a withdrawal of application. You file Form SSA 521, repay every dollar received, and your record resets as if you never filed. After that 12-month window closes, the decision is permanent. But if you're at or past your full retirement age, voluntary suspension is still available. Your check stops and earns 8% more per year. It doesn't undo the early filing reduction completely, but it can recover some ground. And most people who filed early don't know either option exists. Alright friends, let's bring this home with something you can actually use. I want you to imagine we're sitting at your kitchen table together, coffee between us, a notepad in front of you, and I'm walking you through 5 questions before either of you touches that Social Security application. First, do you know your own PIA and your spouse's PIA? The PIA is your full retirement age benefit, the number everything else is calculated from. You can find it by logging into your My Social Security account at SSA. Setting one up takes about 10 minutes. Write both numbers down. Second, what is the age gap between you and your spouse? If there is a 5-year or greater gap, the filing order becomes even more critical. The younger spouse has more years of retirement ahead, and the older spouse's record will likely become the survivor benefit the younger one lives on. Third, does either of you have a pension from a government job, a school district, a state agency, a county, or a municipality? If yes, there are 2 provisions, the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset, that may significantly reduce your Social Security benefits in ways that completely change the spousal benefit math. Do not skip this question. Fourth, what is your household's health picture? I know that's personal and I ask it gently, but if both spouses are in good health and expect to live into their late 80s or 90s, delaying Social Security almost always wins the math. If one spouse has a serious health condition, the calculation may shift. A Social Security break-even analysis shows you the exact crossover point, the age at which delaying actually pays off more than filing early. A planner or even a free SSA tool can help you run this. Fifth, have you projected your surviving spouse's monthly income? Not your combined household income, your surviving spouse's income alone. If the higher earner passes away 10 years from now, what does the surviving spouse receive each month? Is that number enough to cover housing, food, insurance, and medical costs on their own? If the answer makes you uncomfortable, that discomfort is telling you something important. These 5 questions won't make the decision for you, but they will make sure you're making the decision with your eyes open, not the way Dave and Carol made it, on instinct and in the moment. And if you don't know the answers to some of these questions yet, that's completely okay. That's not a failure. That's just information you haven't been given yet, and now you know where to start looking. Here's my challenge to you after this video. First, this week, go to ssa.gov and log into your My Social Security account. Pull up your statement and write down your projected benefit at your full retirement age and at age 70. Then ask your spouse to do the same. Get both numbers on one piece of paper. Second, have the surviving spouse conversation with your partner or a trusted family member. Not the filing age question, the survivor question. If I pass away 10 years from now, what does my spouse receive every month? Is that enough? That conversation, as uncomfortable as it might feel, is one of the most loving things you can do for the person you're building a life with. Third, if you have not had a dedicated Social Security strategy conversation with a fiduciary planner or a certified Social Security specialist, make that appointment before either of you files. Not after, before. Dave and Carol's story is not a tragedy. It's just a Tuesday afternoon conversation that didn't have enough information in the room. The information you heard today could change how that conversation goes for your household. And that matters. You can always make more money. You cannot make more time, and you cannot undo a Social Security filing decision once that 12-month window has closed. Your money is important, but your spouse's security, your peace of mind, and your ability to live with dignity in the years ahead, those are priceless. If this helped you see your situation a little differently today, do 3 things for me. Hit that like button. It helps YouTube show this to more couples your age who need to hear it before they file, not after. Subscribe to The Quiet Retirement so you don't miss our next deep dive on Social Security and Medicare strategies for real people. And in the comments, tell me this: has anyone ever sat down with you and explained the spousal benefit filing order before today? I read every comment, and your answers help me make better videos for you. I'm Uncle John, reminding you your money is important, but your time and your health are priceless. Let's use the rules to your advantage, not theirs. I'll see you in the next one.